Welcome to the fourth and final chapter in our Robot Idle tutorial series. Over the past couple of weeks, we've been drawing, animating, and choreographing this cool robot, the Chromebot 3000, as we move him through the paces of the dance routine that he's going to be doing for our Robot Idle dance contest. Now, there's just one little glitch in the way that he's moving. He's kind of fixed in one spot on the ground. So what we're going to be doing this week is creating some predetermined dance floor location that he's going to move back and forth between. And we're going to create a dynamic system for resizing him so that when he's in the background of the stage, he gets smaller, and when he moves to the foreground, he gets bigger. Lots to do here, so let's get right to it. So Chromebot 3000's rocking the dance floor now. He's doing quite nicely, and we could absolutely enter this robot in the competition the way that he is right now. I just wanted to add an extra little twist here that's going to give a little bit more realism to his dance, and that's get him into a position where he's actually moving around the dance floor rather than being stuck in this one spot. Now that's going to take a little bit of coding here, because the main problem is as we move our character from one location to another, we are going to want to modify his size as he goes along here. If we want him on this stage here, for example, he should be probably about half the size that he is here as he moves backwards. So we're going to have to create kind of a fake 3D effect to get that done. So right now our program is set up to run along two different parallel branches, each one of which handles a different part of the task of animating this robot. The first section here is the musical background track, and we're probably going to end up playing this a couple of different times in our final dance routine. We don't want that messing up the timing of these dance moves. So we can't, for example, play a little bit of music and then have him do a dance move. We need both parts working simultaneously. We're going to add two more branches to this program that are also doing other things simultaneously with his dance movements. First, we're going to create a script that's going to change the size of our robot dynamically so that the farther back he is on the screen, the smaller he gets. And then lastly, we're going to program our robot to move to different spots on the dance floor. We're going to create some custom blocks that tell him to go to different fixed positions on the dance floor. So we're going to be changing our robot size based on his Y coordinate, which is how high up or down he is on the screen. As you can see in this reference image here, a Y of 0 is exactly at the middle of the screen vertically. And based on the way our stage is set up here, that means that our robot's always going to be into the negative Y coordinates. So that makes things a little bit simpler for our programming. So what we really have here is going to be an inverse relationship. The lower our number on the Y coordinate gets, the bigger we want our robot to be. I don't actually want an inverse relationship, I want a positive relationship where there's a number getting bigger as our size is getting bigger, and that will make the programming a little bit simpler. So the way to fix that is just to reverse the polarity of that size. I'm going to go grab a set size block and put it inside a forever loop here. So we're going to set our size dynamically here, as I said, by keying into the Y coordinate. So we're going to grab a Y position bubble here. But when we multiply that number by -1, remember that any number that's multiplied by -1 reverses its polarity. So if I have a 10, for example, and I multiply by a -1, it becomes -10. And the opposite is true with -10. If we multiply that by -1, we'll end up at 10. So if we multiply this Y position by -1, we'll basically be in a position here where when we're at a Y position of -100, our size will be 100. And when we're at a Y position of 10, our size will be 10. Now that's not quite right, but we're getting there. So let's have a look at what that looks like. I'll click the green flag here. You can see our robot is quite small here when it's at the back, but as I move it forward, I've taken the liberty here of just creating a little script that moves my character up or down by 5 coordinates on the Y here, depending on whether I hit the up or the down arrow, and that's going to help us figure this out a little bit better. So you can see that as I move my robot down the screen, he dynamically gets bigger, and as I move him back here, he dynamically gets smaller. Okay, so we just need to offset these numbers a little bit because he just looks a little bit small when he's in this location here. So I'm going to just add a little bit to this number. So I'm going to take this Y position times -1, and I'm going to just add an arbitrary number to it based on what I want that size to be. So I'm going to start at maybe 20 here and see what that looks like. So now we'll click the green flag. Our object will resize. And so now when he's standing on the stage, he looks like he's roughly the right size. And then when he moves forward, he's a lot bigger here. And this actually doesn't look like a bad perspective, I think. I might just increase it a little bit. Let's try 30 and see what that looks like. So this is going to make him bigger in both of those angles, but hopefully in a way that'll look realistic. So here he is back here, and here he is up here. That is looking pretty good, actually. Okay, so that's really all there is to the resizing of it. Now this isn't going to work if you've got a dance floor where he's moving around the top of the screen, of course, but most of these stage backgrounds that you can get have them moving at the bottom side. So this simple script will probably work out quite nicely for you. So I've disabled my resizing script here for a moment just so that I can explain to you why it's important that you figure out the size of your object before you try to move him around on the screen. Right now my robot is positioned perfectly on this podium area here, and his XY coordinates are X of 12 and Y of 18. So no matter where he is on the screen, I can click on this location block and move him back to a spot on top of the podium again. But that gets messed around when his size changes. Right now he's at a size of 50, but if I change him to a size of 75 or something here, for example, his center remains in the same spot, but his feet have moved because he's grown in size. So now when I tell him to go back to that same spot where he should be on the podium, he's in fact off of it. So the moral of the story here is that we have to set up the size of our object first using this script here before we start figuring out the position that he's going to be on the screen here. So the next step is going to be getting the Chromebot 3000 to move across a dance floor. There are different ways you can approach this, but what I'm going to do is set up some pre-programmed coordinates on the dance floor that he can move to. Just to illustrate that, I've created these little sprites on the screen here numbered 1 through 6. And so I'm going to want to set up these 6 positions here, 1, 2, 3 in the foreground and 4, 5, 6 in the background, and be able to use a custom block to have my robot go from 2 to 4, for example. I've already gone ahead and created some basic custom blocks here that are called go to position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now the timing is going to be a little bit off because our robot's not always going to be walking the same distance every time. There are ways to straighten that out with a bit of coding, but in practice it's really not all that important. So what I'm going to want to do here is just drag my Chromebot while the program's running, because we do want it dynamically resizing itself. Want to drag our guy over on top of 1. It's a little tricky because he's constantly resizing himself, but make sure those feet are right in that first position where you want him to be. There we go. Now we have a set of XY coordinates associated with that position, which is -67, -29. And we can go ahead and grab a glide 1 second to block here and enter those numbers into the XY coordinates. So -67, -29. Great. And so now, when I invoke that go to position 1 block, no matter where my sprite is on the screen, well, I've moved him too far there, obviously. He's going to go over to position 1 over the course of 1 second. Let's try that from here. There we go, beautiful. So we just have to go ahead and do that for the other 6 positions now, and then we'll be good to go. And there you have it. I have those 6 positions defined here, and now by grabbing one of these blocks, I can send my character off to that spot on the screen. Now, I don't need these reference marks anymore. I'm just actually going to delete them from the final project. I just wanted to use them for to give you an idea of what's going on here. So let's try going to 1, 2, 3, 6. There, you can see he's moving around the screen quite nicely now. Now, the one thing that's not happening is he's not walking. We're going to want to insert these dance positions in between the dance moves, and we do want our character to go through some motions with their feet while they're moving around. So I'm just going to create a simple script here. I want to insert it into here. We're going to use a broadcast command here. So I'm going to broadcast a message in here that's called walk. And so that's going to happen simultaneously with the movement. So I'm going to drop a couple of these in here, and then we'll show you what that looks like. So here's the code that we're going to be using to create the walk cycle. I just picked 2 different steps from the kick move that look a little bit like he's moving his feet. And so if you have a look, let's move him into the foreground here where you can see him a little bit better. And you can see that when we invoke this, he's going to do a little walky thing with his feet. When we combine that with the glide command, it's going to create the appearance that he's moving his legs around a little bit. So let's try sending him to position 4 here in the top left. There you can see. So he's just repeating these 2 steps 3 times. It's not going to be perfectly synchronized, but in the middle of all the dancing and stuff like that, I think that it's going to look reasonably realistic. So let's hook up our dance routine one more time here. We'll get our prefab motions in here, and we'll get our music running again. And now we can start inserting some of these motion blocks. So for starters, I do want to go back to position 1 here, or position 5, which is on top of the podium here. And I'm going to start my dance move from that spot. So let's actually, rather than having him go to that position, we're just going to grab a go to XY coordinates block and manually enter those numbers. So this is going to be his starting position on the screen, 13 minus 6. There we go. And we'll get him to do the Egyptian and then walk over to the front middle of the screen, which is position 2. So let's go ahead and do that. Then he's going to do a spin and a kick, and we'll make him go back to position 6, which is at the bottom right of the screen, and then send him across to position 4 after he does another dance move. We'll have him do the Egyptian again. 1 time with a delay of 0.15. All right, so let's just play around with this and see how it looks. There we go. Now we're going to need our music loop to continue longer than that, of course, because we've got our dance routine quite a bit longer than it was before. I'm actually going to do another dance move right at the end of that. So let's do another spin and 1 more Egyptian. So the spin is actually a much shorter time than it was when I set this up last week. I noticed that the spin was just way too slow. So I'm going 0.02 for the delay for the spin, and then we'll do another Egyptian at the same speed we've been doing all along, 0.15. Okay, and we'll run that music in a loop twice now, so that we can keep it running for the entirety of our time that our dance moves are happening. All right, let's look at that one more time. There we go. All right, looks like we're gonna have to trim that back a little bit or do something to make it synchronize with this. I'm actually gonna add a few more moves to this, I think. So let's actually have him move left and right on the screen at the beginning here. So we're going to position 2, and then let's send him to position 3 right after he does his spin, and then we'll send him back to position 1 right after that, and we'll have him end up back on the podium again. We'll send him back to position 5, and then we'll have him do the kick one more time with a delay of 0.15. Let's increase that music loop up to 3 times. And we'll just have to check the timing and make sure that it's right. The music's probably going to go a little bit longer now. And there we go, that timing was actually pretty good there. So that is basically how we're gonna finish up this dance routine here. So this is sufficient to enter the contest. This is at least 30 seconds, so the criteria were 30 seconds to a minute, set to music, with a bunch of different dance moves. And so this thing is a perfectly acceptable entry now to the dance contest. One other little step that I've added, that if you want to have a look at it inside this finished file, that is these disco lights here. I just have simply drawn a disco light shape here with a gradient going from yellow to nothing, and then I placed it in the center of the screen, and now I'm using code to just basically have it rotate 100 degrees and then 100 degrees in the other direction. We put a bit of ghost in it to make it more transparent, and I think that actually adds a nice little kind of live active dance hall event. So we're gonna dance you out here to the music of the Chromebot 3000. Thanks for joining me. Hope you enter my contest. The deadline is February 12th, 2022. And if you're watching this tutorial afterwards, don't worry, we'll be back again next year with another version. So you will get your robot online, and go ahead and keep making them. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and happy robot building, guys.